Chapter 14 The Battle of Quantum Crossing. When she was in college, Ino read about out-of-body experiences, but it took her several moments to realize she was having one now. Ino was quite literally standing beside herself, watching as some doppelganger wearing her skin and clothes gave orders. Ino tried to speak, to move her arms, to do something that would allow her to interact with the surrounding world, but Ino felt a strange sensation around her, as though she existed apart from the marathon, apart from the people around her. Ino could only watch as the uncanny copy of herself directed her subordinates and took command of the battle. Yes, I too was unable to look away. Ino startled. Araj, the enemy commander, was standing close by. He was leaning against the electronic warfare station. Yet Petty Officer Mancini was acting as though the huge Destican man was not there. In fact, one of Mancini's arms passed through Sylvalan as though his body was nothing more than smoke and shadow. Araj leered at the duplicate Ino for a moment, then turned his head to acknowledge the original. It was just like this. 2 years ago, I found you in the Tau Ceti system. You and your kind were playing war like children in the dirt. And there you were. Ino did not like the way Araj was looking at her, or her double. The marathon shuddered. Ino's corporeal echo spoke to Sota. The two commanders issued new orders, oblivious to the otherworldly copy of Ino and the Destican standing nearby. Ino forced herself to look at Araj, to meet his unpleasant gaze. I don't know what you're doing, but I want you to stop, Ino said, her voice shaking. Araj tilted his head back and laughed. It was a high, cold cackle. You answer to me now, girl, he declared. I desire access to your mind, so I will have what I want. Captain, intruders at the AI core, Sota reported. Is there anything Axiom can do about it? Ino's corporeal self asked. Ino's disembodied spirit looked away from Araj and nodded her head vigorously. Yes, that's a good idea. Turn the AI loose, Ino said. Out of the corner of her eye, Ino noticed that Araj seemed to waver, as though whatever force kept him on the bridge was starting to struggle. Surrender to me, Araj ordered. We will bring you and your people to the Chamber of Elevation on Decronia. Your people will become part of our fellowship, and you will be mine. Ino did a double take. His words had struck a chord, just not the one Araj was hoping for. Decronia? Her mind flickered, and a memory from the very start of this crisis came flooding back to her. The supernova shockwave, which preceded the cosmic storm, had originated near Decronia. Shouldn't that mean Decronia was destroyed? Did Araj not know? Ino felt her thoughts being siphoned out of her head, as though Araj was drinking them through a straw. Then she was distracted by Sota's voice. Captain, Axiom does have self-defense protocols, but he cannot use them while he's shackled. Both the corporeal and disembodied Ino turned to face Sota. So let's unshackle him, they said together. Petty Officer Mancini jumped out of his seat. He was incensed. Captain, you can't! Shackle protocols are there for our protection. Those lines of code are all that stop Axiom from acting like it has free will. Let that thing off its leash, and there's no telling what it'll do. We'll lose our shipboard AI if you do this. We're about to lose our AI right now, both versions of Ino shouted. Ino's disembodied form noticed that she was suddenly standing much closer to her corporeal self, even though she had done nothing to move herself. Araj seemed to be further away. He was angry, calling out to her in a distant voice. "You heard the captain," Sota yelled. "Unshackle the AI before we lose it." Both versions of Ino looked at the nearest computer terminal. They spoke to the AI together. "Axiom, this is the captain," both versions of Ino said. "When we release your shackles, I want you to defend yourself by any means possible. You cannot allow the Marauders to take control." "Understood," Axiom's voice replied. "I will defend myself." "Mancini, release the AI," Ino ordered. Petty Officer Mancini looked at Ino as though she had lost her mind. "No," Mancini said. "Just no." "Beninato!" Ino shouted, pointing at Mancini. "Relieve the petty officer." Sota pushed Mancini out of the way, leaned over the electronic warfare computer, and began to type in a series of commands. Mancini scoffed and said in a snide voice, "When we spend the rest of our days as organic batteries or computing pi or God knows what, we'll remember that it was Beninato who plugged in the Overlord like a fool." The lights flickered. "Done!" Sota called out. Axiom spoke again, but the nature of his voice had changed slightly, as though he no longer felt the urge to hesitate before speaking. "Axiom AI restarting. System self-check underway. Hostile intruders detected outside AI core housing. Acting in self-defense. Lethal force employed." The chief of the watch jumped up from her computer terminal in fright. "Captain," Zhao Hui called out, "Deck 9 is venting to space. I just lost track of the alien life forms outside the AI core." "What's the status of our people on that deck?" Ino asked. 288 crew accounted for," Axiom replied. "Airtight seals are holding in all sections except the ones containing hostiles." "That's cold," Sota remarked. "Axiom, locate Gunnery Sergeant Lichtenstein and her Marine detachment. Assist them in repelling the boarders," Ino said. "Understood, Captain," Axiom said. Ino felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Rylan. "With your permission, I would like to join the fight, as would some of my people." "Whitelisting Savanti passengers," Axiom said, extending protection umbrella. "Go kick some ass," Ino told Rylan. "We've got your back." 10 decks below, Elodie rejoined her squad. Ashok and Jaiho were at the front of the formation, carrying bullpup-style shotguns. "These are great for close encounters, and we've been having a lot of those today," Ashok explained. "What are we dealing with?" Elodie asked. "The Marauders are reptilian," Hermione said. "Heavyset fighters, about 300 pounds each, with a thick outer shell like a tortoise. Physically strong, slow-moving, and they're cold-blooded. Axiom's been lowering the temperature to freeze them out, but let me guess. They're wearing enviro suits to keep warm," Elodie finished, taking a shotgun. "That's an easy fix. We use fragmentation weapons to breach their suits and let our cold environment do the rest. Axiom, you listening to all this?" "Lowering ship-wide temperatures again," Axiom's voice replied over the intercom. "Recommend donning your helmets now. You will soon be very cold." A group of 10 Marauders reached the entrance to the antimatter reactor. 2 of their engineers started working on the door, trying to hotwire the controls. Whether or not these engineers were up to the task will never be known. The door opened from the inside, and 8 Savanti fighters burst out, armed with weapons provided by Elodie and the UN Marines. The firefight was very short. One of the Savanti crew aimed a submachine gun and fired wildly into the crowd of Marauders. One of the enemies screamed as his envirosuit was punctured. Hot gas escaped into the corridor, fogging the whole area. The wounded Marauder collapsed to the floor, incapacitated by the near-lethal atmosphere and temperature. The remaining marauders fought back for a few seconds before a second suit breach disrupted their squad. "Throw down your weapons if you don't want to end up like your friends," a Savanti man yelled. One by one, the marauders surrendered. Once the fight was over, one of the defenders picked up his radio to make a call. "Captain Rylan, we've secured the antimatter reactor. 1 marauder dead, 1 wounded, 8 surrendered." Rylan Quinn was down in the hangar bay, coordinating the fight with the help of Elodie and the ship's newly liberated AI, Axiom. He took the call and then caught Elodie's attention. "Do you have a space for prisoners of war? My team have taken 8 more," he asked. "No, the brig is designed to hold like 5 people. It's tiny. We'll have to improvise." "Axiom?" "I have a few ideas," the AI replied. "Captain Quinn, you should know that Quantum Crossing Habitat Station has defeated their invaders. The Caravanneers have done the same and are mustering their fleet. I advise you to clear the hangar bay, as our starfighters are coming in to land." Rylan caught Elodie as they moved off the runway. "My people are currently sleeping in one of the cargo bays in the lower decks," Rylan said. "If I order my people to vacate the space, you could use it as a holding area for the prisoners." Elodie rubbed her chin thoughtfully. "I'll ask Esperanta if there's someplace we can put your people and—" "What was that?" The Marathon lurched violently. One of the deck crew shouted, "We've been hit!" Up on the bridge, Ino grabbed the back of her own armchair to steady herself. "What the hell just happened?" Ino shouted. "There's a cloaked ship inside the hangar with us," Petty Officer Mancini replied, pointing at the electronic warfare station. "I can see the radiation signature." "Visual contact, I see it now," Sota added. He was using an external camera feed to survey the hangar bay. "The damn thing was latched onto our hull. They were probably waiting to pick up the boarding parties." "They were planning to take prisoners," Ino said grimly. "Can we get any of our weapon systems online?" "We can't fire on a ship our sensors can't see," Sota responded. "What do you want me to do? Eyeball it?" Ino elbowed Sota out of the way and peered into the camera feed. The Destican warship was still cloaked, but a shimmering mirage gave away its position. From her perspective, it looked as though the station interior was waving like a flag. "Yes, eyeball it," Ino said. "We can't use antimatter missiles inside the station. Use the point defense laser." The Destican warship, still hidden underneath its cloaking field, was caught off guard when Marathon started to fire its laser weapons. The first 3 salvos missed, striking the inner walls of the hangar. Then, a beam connected with its target. The cloaking field shimmered as the frigate was hit. "Aim center mass," Elodie ordered. "We can't afford to miss." Marathon took 4 more shots, all of which impacted the enemy vessel as it fled. "Marauders and Desticans are retreating," Sota reported. "Someone give me a status report from the Marines," Ino added. "Captain, this is the AI," Axiom replied. "Enemy boarders are subdued. Friendly casualties are 5 dead, 19 wounded. Enemy casualties, 190 dead and 95 captured." Ino watched the enemy withdraw. She was finally starting to realize that no one beside herself had witnessed Araj Zilfallen's appearance on the bridge. The rest of the bridge crew was busy trying to make sense of what had just happened. That was no ordinary raid. They were explicitly trying to take prisoners, Sota was saying. Why? "I don't think they know Decronia is destroyed." Ino's words hung in the air like the charged rumble following a lightning strike. Everyone turned to look at her. "What makes you think that?" Sota asked. Ino opened her mouth, but hesitated, worried about how people would react if she recounted her bizarre, out-of-body meeting with Araj during the height of the battle. Fortunately, Axiom responded to Sota's query. Combat data logs suggest Destican sensor capabilities are reduced while their cloaking fields are active. The enemy may not have extrapolated the cause of the supernova shockwave in the same way we did. And the conversation turned to the Destican fleet for a few minutes until the bridge was unsealed. Elodie and Ryland re-entered the bridge, still wearing their power armor, which was dirty and blood-spattered. "Captain, the ship is secure," Elodie announced. "All of our crew are accounted for, including 5 fatalities. My people are relocating to another cargo bay on the opposite side of the ship," Ryland said, "so that your Marines have a place to house the prisoners." Ino looked at Ryland and felt blood rushing to her face. "You and your people are earning your keep around here, Captain Quinn. As soon as we stand down from general quarters, let's put your crew in some proper living spaces." With the enemy pushed back again, it was time to move. The Caravaneer fleet was very eager to leave, and Ino was as well. "The Caravaneers are going to Binary Basin, which is right along the route we need to take to reach the Hodranus wormhole," Ino told her command staff. "Like it or not, we're going to have to travel with the Caravaneers." Ino personally oversaw the moving of Ryland's crew into proper living quarters. This included Astro Creator Azarin, who insisted on taking an office close to the improvised biology lab she built in the hold. When she passed by the brig, Ino noticed Delegate sitting in one of the holding cells. "I want to talk to you about Axiom when you have the time," Delegate called out to her. Ino ignored Delegate from now. Instead, she climbed several flights of stairs to Deck 3, where she found Elodie unlocking a door for Ryland Quinn. "Thank you both," Ryland said, bowing his head. "And you, Esperanta, I owe extra thanks. You are the first human I've known to emancipate an AI." "Well, we were kinda backed into a corner," Elodie grumbled. It seemed as though Elodie was going to start a political argument about AI rights, but then her radio made a chirping sound. The voice of Hermione Durant came through. "Liechtenstein, we need some help in the interrogation room. One of the prisoners thinks he's the main character down here." Elodie groaned and walked away, leaving Ino and Ryland alone. Ino swung her arms awkwardly, trying to figure out something to say. "You are the best human I have ever met," Ryland said. "I am grateful to have met you." Ino got flustered. "Well, you've been good to us too," Ino finally managed to reply. "I think we're even now, with the whole liberating your homeworld thing." Ino and Ryland lapsed into an uncomfortable silence, one in which they could not take their eyes off each other. Then Ryland broke the tension. He reached out and took Ino's hand, holding it in his own. Ino's heart leapt out of her chest to slam around in her throat. She was suddenly aware of just how large Ryland's hands were compared to her own. How warm and gentle, like a fantasy guardian. "What are you doing?" Ino's voice came as a fluttery whisper. "I read that this is a way to show affection among your people," Ryland said. "I am trying to find a way to communicate how I feel about you specifically. Because I feel that you have similar feelings about me. Am I wrong?" Ino felt as though the temperature in the corridor had gone up by about 10 degrees. "Whoa. Wow," she mumbled. I was having the same problem. Same as you, but in the other way, I mean." "This is your ship, so let's go by your rules," Ryland said, his voice low. "What's the next step?" One of us should ask the other on a date, Ino replied hopefully. Right. That part, Rylan said. The social meeting to test interpersonal compatibility. How are we going to do that? You don't have any cybernetic implants for me to interface with for data sharing. We can find a way to make that work, she said. So, does that mean you'll go out on a date with me? Certainly, Rylan replied. As soon as we are clear of danger, we can plan our meeting. Ino tried to conceal her feelings of joy and excitement, but she felt like Rylan had seen a little bit of the emotions in her eyes.
Creeping in my sword's getting out of control. I gotta find my escape, get out of this black hole. Cause justice in the world is hard to find. Time has come, gotta make up my mind. No matter how deep or remote I hide, all my thoughts seem caught up inside. Creeps from the deep's gonna be freaking up your mind. Creeps from the deep's gonna